We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies. Welcome back to Deal Junkies. We're back in the studio with Matt Cox, Saucetown Properties. We're going to talk deals today. I'm Gabe. Trevor's in the room. We still don't have Mike or Dane. We miss you guys.
Wait, tell us why it's Saucetown Properties, because I was really confused when I'd always see that until you told me.
Yeah, where is Saucetown?
Yeah, Saucetown is Salem. Don't you guys know?
No.
So if you're what age are you? Tell
yeah.
people.
So if you're around, I just turned 35. If you're around my age in high school, everyone was calling it Saucetown.
At your high school or all the high schools?
I'd say South Sprague. No, yeah, pretty much everywhere, I guess. Yeah. But it dates back. We call it Saucetown, the Sauce. That's another one. But it dates back. There was this hip hop group from Salem, Oregon, called 684, and they were doing a concert at the Hoop that I went to. It was the first concert I ever went to. They were opening for Andre Nicotina, and they started calling it Saucetown, and that's it. That's the whole. And
where did they get that? If you're over at the Hoop, you're kind of near Yoshida, like soy sauce. That's where the soy sauce comes from, Salem. It's Yoshida soy sauce. We're Saucetown.
That's probably where they got it.
Maybe that's it. I think they said something about like it was all the cultures together make it the sauce or something. I can't remember, but Saucetown, everyone called it that. And I was like, if I start a company someday, it's going to be called Saucetown.
So if you're around Matt's age, let us know if this is BS or not.
Yeah, I'm older. I never heard Saucetown.
But sweet. So we wanted to dive into some deals this episode. So we give you guys some specifics. You wanted to start with a Burr deal and kind of share numbers on what that looks like so someone can grasp that?
Yeah, so I'll just go through my first Burr deal I did. It was out in Staten, actually. I bought it from a wholesaler, Discount Property Wholesalers, and it was right. So that was the second deal I bought by myself. The first one was just on market, was a duplex. This was a Burr deal. The height of COVID, I think I closed on it like June or July of 2020 when no one was buying stuff. And so, of course, that's probably the most smoking deal I ever got because no one showed up to the walkthrough. Real estate's
Everyone's scared, yeah.
Real estate's going to zero. We're all dying. All that stuff. And I was, probably too. I don't know. I didn't know the difference. I was just like, the numbers work. So I bought this thing. It's a single family home. Kind of a fun one, actually. It's next door to where my great grandparents used to live in Staten.
Oh, so that's cool.
That was a cool kind of one of my first deals to get into. Bought it for $207,000. I'm going off the top of my head here. I think that's what it was. I did a ton of the work myself. Like nowadays I would have my contractors do it and it would cost a hell of a lot more. But I knew I wanted to make it a rental. I wasn't going to flip it or anything. All I wanted to do was own rentals. I wasn't into house flips or any of that. So I went in there. My dad helped me too. Shout out to him. He's a really good painter. He helped me paint it. Did all the yard work, did some pretty minor repairs. There wasn't a ton of stuff.
So you didn't have to redo bathrooms and kitchens and all that?
No, just some drywall and that kind of stuff.
Did you do flooring?
Didn't do flooring.
Wait, so you just bought this thing in drywall and paint, like in the yard?
Pretty much. I'm trying to think what else. I pressure wash it, stuff like that to make it look nice. So I got it at 207. I remember I knew exactly, I'd heard the Burr deal thing 100 times on Bigger Pockets. So I'm like, here's how it goes. At this many months, I can refi it. Went out there. I think it appraised at 280 or something like that. And because they'll give you, when they're underwriting that, they'll give you 80% loan to value. And so I got every single dime back out of it. Rented it for I think the first year, $2,100 or $2,200. My payment was like right around $1,100, and I was like, oh my god, I just bought it. It's paying me $1,000 a month before repairs or anything. It was pretty sweet because you're nervous, like what if the appraisal comes in at what I bought it? You're always worried about that.
Get a new appraisal.
Yeah, I did have
until it comes in where you need it.
That was one thing I had my shit together on. Was I had a whole like script I sent to the appraiser, like explaining this is why I bought it for this low. It was off market. I did all these repairs, and I kind of like prepped them for it. And I got the appraisal I needed, got all my money back, and got a renter in there.
We call that an executive summary.
There you go.
You built a little book report around what the property was and what you were doing to it. It's good. It helps appraisers.
Yeah.
They're just trying. I mean, it's really hard on a refi. Appraisers floating in the wind because on a sale, they've got a contract. They know that they've got a target to hit. On a refi, they're just like, if you get the wrong appraiser, I mean, from one appraiser to the next, you could be way
$100,000 swings on $400,000 homes.
And you're scared because when you just bought the place a few months earlier, you're worried they're just going to look at what you bought it for and be like, well, it definitely didn't go up 30% since then.
They use you as a sale comp.
Exactly.
Yeah. I did a deal once where the seller decided he wanted an appraisal last minute before we closed the deal, just to know for himself what the property was worth. And this is a bigger deal, like $6 million deal. And so he gets the appraisal back, and then 3 weeks later we close the deal, and the appraisal for the sale was $800,000 higher than his appraisal. So he was really happy with me. I sold it for $800,000 more than his appraisal.
Okay.
But he just needed to know. He wasn't being shortchanged or somebody was pulling a fast one on him.
We had a seller do that this year on 32nd. They thought that I was fleecing them basically.
Oh, dude, we were doing.
I mean, they had
had
all kinds of difficulties with those guys.
This thing was wild because he was buying this 2 triplexes, and he was doing it on a DSCR loan. So they're running the numbers right, and they kept giving us bad rent data and all this improper information. We're like, guys, like the numbers were this thin to like we hit 80% LTV on it to where it was because it was below market rents. And then they gave us bad rents, or they told us it was filled when it wasn't actually filled. And we're like, guys, this is messing up the DSCR. And it was really old realtor lady, but she couldn't grasp the numbers. I was like, no, like this is very important because of this number. And they're like, I don't see why it matters. I'm like, like the numbers are all that matters.
The loan is based on the income.
On these numbers. And we're like, we need the income to be here. And they're like, I don't see why. Like if your buyer wants it, they should just. I'm like, no.
That's the best thing about being the one doing the deals is when other people make the mistakes, you're the one that's in charge of fixing them. It never comes back to the person who made the mistake.
We had to give them all the solutions in the world to like, all right, do this.
But that's where the opportunity comes from.
Yeah.
That's where the deals are at. I oftentimes tell people to not complain about bad brokers because they'll make you rich. I mean, it's a really important part of our industry is that somebody gets a hold of a listing they shouldn't have, and it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's a painful deal.
Talk about
but in the end, you're really happy you did that deal, aren't you?
Yeah, we worked through it. It was we were in escrow. I think we fell out of escrow, went back in, and then the second escrow took probably almost 3 months for a 6-plex.
So you got all your money back and cash flowed.
That's the Burr deal.
That's the Burr deal. Yeah.
You started 6-plex.
This is 6-plex.
Yes.
Dude,
okay.
Talk about bad brokers. So there was that deal we were trying to buy for 2.4 or 2.3, and then they sold it for 1.8 and forgot that we offered them $500,000. Their broker forgot. Like they had a $500,000 higher offer, and then just sold it for 1.8. And
just a rounding error.
Yeah, which is that she lost that dude $500,000.
Oh my god, that's a lawsuit. That's crazy.
Happens all the time though. But okay, so then next deal you want to talk about lease option. Tell people like what that looks like so they can understand why and how you would do that type of deal.
Yeah, so we did. I think the first deal I did with you and Sabrina, Trevor, was on a lease option, and the way it's structured is you're basically it's a way of taking over someone else's mortgage. So in this scenario, it was a duplex. The seller had, I think, a 3.25 mortgage or something like that, and we basically set it up where I never took title of the property. That's what a lease option is. I'm technically leasing it from the guy who I bought it from. He's still on title, and the amount of my lease is the exact same amount as his mortgage payment. And So it's basically just a way, and what it does, it gives me, hence the term lease option. It gives me the option to take title of the property anytime, and I think the next like 26 years or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Because so what it does is it records a memorandum against title, so your interest in the property is still protected, and all the docs are pre-signed. So once you meet X requirement, you take title, whatever you're doing with it later. But I think on that one, wasn't there a note also?
Yeah, and then he carried, I think, $50,000 in second position.
So he carried some of his equity for you.
But because it's a lease option, it's funky with a carry. It's a lease rate, and then we had the attorney write it up as it pays down or something because it's a lease option.
Yeah, you're making a lease payment.
No.
Yeah.
So it's a lease payment. So that's kind of interesting.
Why not use a land sale contract and do a memorandum of
that
sale?
was an option too to do it, and we were just talking through all the different ways.
Attorney felt because a lease option is almost the same thing as a land sale contract.
It's very similar, and it was based on the seller and the buyer coming to agreement on what both worked for them per attorney. Like, here's your options.
In both cases, the seller stays on title. You cloud the title with a memorandum.
Both. Yeah.
Real quick, I don't think I even fully grasp what a land sale contract, how it differs.
It doesn't. It's funny you say that.
Okay.
If you read the language in a land sale contract and a lease option, like they're almost the same. It's almost the same thing. And the seller just stays in title. You get control of the property, but you cloud the title so that they're not going to go refi or sell from out from underneath you. Mm-hmm. But you have essence of title. You don't have equity of title is the technical term for it. So in a land sale contract, in most jurisdictions, your property tax statement will have the seller's name on it, and then it'll have your name below in brackets.
Got it.
I'm not sure if all jurisdictions do that, but that's how it works in Salem. If you do a lease option, I don't think that happens. If you record that memorandum, does that put them in brackets?
I don't know
on
exactly on that.
So, but the problem we had, Trevor and I have done this before. And we get into a deal and we say, okay, we want to refi. You're going to do the BRRRR. We're going to pull some money out of this thing. But then the lender says, well, it's not seasoned because you're not in title. And we're like, but we've had control of the property for 2 years. And they say, yeah, but you're not on title. The seller's still on title. So then you have to find a lender that'll work around that.
Yeah, it's a little
bit
lender dependent there, but they'll take your option fee as your down payment and equity built within it. And you actually, on a lease option, you get to depreciate it still, which people don't understand. If you have your bill,
it's a tricky way of buying a property and saying you leased it when really all the language shows that you
have the option to buy it.
You have the option to buy it.
Building equity within.
One thing I will say, and this is confused often, is like a lot of sellers think they can do a lease option and wait until you trigger that option before they start their clock on a 1031. But it's been explained to me by tax attorneys that if your lease option language looks like a land sale contract, then technically your sale happened the date that you leased the property on a lease option.
Oh, interesting.
So because you would think about this would be one way to go like, hey, I don't want to do a 1031 now. I want to wait, but I don't want this property. I want to lock in the price now, have somebody else take care of it. And 10 years from now, I want to do my 1031. You could do a lease option, get paid off 10 years from now and go into a 1031. They could still do that. But if it were to be audited, the way it's been explained to me is you go down that trail and you'd go back initially to where you agreed upon the price and the terms and all the things. And that would be the date that your 1031 clock started ticking.
Okay. So go back to that deal. What was the price and like the terms and all that of?
We bought it. I think I partnered on that one actually. We bought it for $375, I think. So we took over. I think we brought 50 to close, got 50 in the seller carry, and then took over a $275 note. I think was what it was.
Yeah. And then you were just essentially paying interest on the. How long did you have? Because we set it so you have the option length equivalent to his loan length, right? Is that what you had?
Correct. So the option length is like 26 years or whatever.
You can pay down the loan over the whole length of the option if you really want.
Yeah, you can hold it forever. And the carry, I think, was 5 years.
Okay, so you're just paying that down over time.
So you'll owe him the $50,000 note in 5, but you've got 26 years on his 3.25% interest rate that you wrapped.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was the first one I did with these guys. I don't think I sort of knew what was going on, but that deal taught me a ton because I didn't know what a lease option was at the time.
Yeah, lease options, assumptions, wraps, all this stuff was born in the 80s when we had 18% interest rate. and you couldn't do a deal unless you got creative. And so we've always done creative deals since I've gotten into real estate. But it's funny because, I'll make an offer to somebody and they'll go, we haven't heard about a deal like that since the 80s. Like nobody's tried to wrap anything. Now, of course, that's changing with interest rates over the last couple of years going up. Now suddenly we hear, the sub 2 movement and all these things are happening, because now suddenly you look at a deal and you go like, that may or may not be a deal, but we need to know what the underlying debt is on it. Because if we can use that, then we might be able to put a deal together here.
Do you know why the seller was willing to take that deal?
If I remember, why was it? He desperately needed some cash. I think he tried to sell on market, because I basically bought it for full market value. The appeal was in the structure of it. And I think he tried to sell it conventionally. Couldn't do it. And he needed cash badly. Like I remember when we were getting close to closing, that we were getting some text messages like, "Hey, can you just release $10,000 earlier?" Like that kind of stuff. He really needed it.
The escrow officer went on vacation or something for like 2 weeks, and they're the only one who knew how to do like a creative deal structure.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're holding up the sale.
It made it by the close.
So she had a seller who needed cash but didn't need all of it. Wanted his price. It's a great way to do a creative deal is when they have an urgent need.
Yeah, it's win-win.
Solving a problem. Yeah.
Most sellers don't need all of the cash. That's not why they're selling. Unless they're doing a 1031 and that was the whole plan, to use all of that equity in the next deal. Most sellers, they need 60 to 80% of what's coming out of that deal, which is where you can get creative.
Yeah, so then if you think about it from seller terms, you can make it a win-win, because he got what he needed, cash, but he also got this price that other people on the market weren't willing to pay, and then he gets to collect interest on that equity
on his note.
Well,
yeah.
So it's like,
yeah. And Matt gets to lock in case values go up. Matt gets to enjoy the appreciation of it. But if the market crashed, that other guy would have locked in at his price, and you could always fail the note, I guess, and that's the risk. But
then he would lose $50,000 if he failed the note too. So then it's like,
yeah. So then he just takes the property back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you can really structure them like.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite question to ask a seller is, what are you going to do with the money? And this guy, he didn't need $100,000 that bad, but he needed $10,000 or $50,000 right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's get you the $50,000 right now. Let's talk about how we're going to take care of the other 50.
Exactly.
I love it.
All right. So what other deals you got? You want to talk about?
Yeah, we can go into a little bit of the nitty gritty of that fourplex that I bought. This one's out on State Street, just past Lancaster. Actually, I just saw it in person for the first time the other day. I'd never seen it before. Bought it back in it must have been April or May or something.
You like
that.
it better or worse now that you've seen it?
I liked it better. It was a pleasant surprise. The thing's in pretty good shape. I did some work to it too, but yeah, I liked it better. So this one, it was an older seller. I can't remember even what. I think he just wanted to get out of real estate basically, and I think a similar deal where he had been on market for a bit at $825. He wasn't getting what he wanted. No, he was. I think he may have gone under contract once and it fell apart quickly because somebody freaked out at the inspection or something like that. And then it was down to $725. It was still listed, and he still wasn't getting a ton of traction on it. I think Trevor brought it to me and was like, "Hey, this guy's willing to get creative on this a little bit." And I was like, "All right, let's check on it." And so we ended up getting an accepted offer at $725, but he carried back off title just as a prom note, carried back $300,000. So I got 540 or something from the bank, got 300 from him. You got closing costs and stuff like that. So I'm getting, just doing the math there, 540 from him, 300 from the seller. So I got the fourplex, got about 70 at closing, I think, after closing costs. Used some of that to do the repairs, get the place in better shape. I can't remember exactly what the rent roll was, but it was low, so I knew there was room to value add just through doing some repairs and then just getting the rents up. There's some rough tenants in there. We actually had to gosh, I think we evicted 3 of them. 2 of them just flat out weren't paying. I think one of them left on their own because I can't remember exactly. But anyway, we have it took 6 months to kind of get it semi-stabilized. But as of now, I think we've raised the rent roll by, gosh, across all the units must be close to $1,000 more than what I bought it for. And I think we have some. It's a little bit of a rough area. I know you guys own some stuff out there, but we've gotten, I think, some pretty quality tenants in there. And, it's a good deal.
Do you service the full debt amount now with that?
Yeah, we net, I think, before repairs, of course. But,
deals from him.
I think we net about $1,000 a month now.
That's cool.
That's a great deal.
Uh-huh. And that was outside of our buy box. I said, Matt, you have to buy this.
Why was it out?
Why was it out?
It was
Yeah.
too small of a deal.
Oh, okay.
So, we decided
we're not going to.
We're doing, yeah. We should have done that deal, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm mad at you, Trevor. That's cool. So how does that work then? He carried a note off title. So then did you have to bring all the down payment and then just get he gave you a note afterwards, or were they able to work this all through escrow? Or
yeah, so I had to bring the down payment and just basically
get it back later.
Got it back the same day.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's kind of like in a HELOC, but rather than later on, you're just borrowing money quickly.
Yeah, you're borrowing money right out of the gate. Now, okay, to me, the first person to ask for money is the person who just got a big check, right? And so if he doesn't need all the money, and so he was willing to do that deal and carry $300,000 post closing off title.
So, but he wouldn't have been able to do that deal probably right off the bat had you not owned other deals. So part of it was like, hey, here's all the other deals.
Yeah, because you personally guaranteed.
Correct.
Your personal guarantee doesn't mean anything until you got assets.
So we got to bring his schedule of real estate and be like, here you go. Like, here's why he will pay you. Here's all his assets.
That's what I mean when I say this gets easier.
Yeah.
Is because people will do for you now what they wouldn't do for you before.
Yep.
You wouldn't have been able to do that on your first deal.
No way. I wouldn't have been able to wrap my head around it. That I was getting money back at closing.
Yeah,
but
now when you think about it, it's simple. It's like, okay, you buy a deal. Who's the best person to borrow from now? The seller. They have a ton of money. What are they going to do with it all?
Unless they're doing an exchange.
Unless this guy was just end of the life cycle of investing.
Any seller that's just selling to pay taxes, you always ask them, what are you going to do with the money? Have you talked to your accountant about how much tax exposure you have? I would assume that giving you that note back, there's a way for him to probably work some tax benefits to him as well. Because if he didn't, if he didn't park
that
$300,000 into his account, he didn't receive the cash, then he can kick that can down the road and pay taxes on that $300 later, maybe.
Is that a good kind of conversation starter you use? Is the tax thing?
I think so.
People just.
I think so. Like, to me, number one, you want to sell. I see you've been on the market for a little while and it hasn't sold. Would you be willing to be creative? Meaning, do you need all the money?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do when you sell? What are you going to do with this money? That's the number one.
And isn't it like it's your first $84,000 of cap gains is tax free, right?
I don't know. Is that true?
I thought every cap gain is taxed.
So there's
there is a threshold or something. We'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I think it's $84,000. So he would pay a tax on the interest still, but on the principal balance, he'd be collecting tax free, I believe, for up to $84,000 a year.
$84,000 a year.
Yeah, and it increases year over year, I believe.
Okay.
Don't quote me on this.
Yeah, we're not tax attorneys, guys.
Talk to my dad.
We're
dad's
yeah,
accountant.
Yeah. John Cox. Call John.
No, don't call him.
He's retired.
He's retired. He's not picking up if you call him about taxes.
You're kind of lucky to have a dad that's an accountant, though. That was helpful for you, I'm sure.
He does handle mine. I think this is he's declared this is his final year working on mine. It's gotten too complicated.
Yeah, because if you're not a real estate accountant, like that's a very niche thing. A lot of the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have accountants turn us down all the time. They don't want to deal with this.
Yeah,
it's too complicated.
Either. I used to do my own taxes, and then I started buying stuff. I still did it for a while, so I started understanding. And I was like, okay, like I don't even know what's happening now.
The concept here, though, is you got a seller. They don't need all the money. You can give them a good price, and if you give them the security they're looking for, you can give them what they want, be a good buyer, close the deal, and on top of that, they can save some money on taxes or at least kick that can down the road. So, they get to earn income. They get to earn interest income on some of their equity. They get to not pay taxes on that portion. And so, I mean, when you look at what Uncle Sam takes from you when you sell a property, especially if you've had the property and depreciated it all the way out, you're going to have a huge tax bill at the end. I mean, I've seen some of those tax bills approach like 40%. So, I mean, nobody wants to pay that. Like if I had the option, rather than paying the 40%, of giving you a note and making interest on that note and getting a check every month, I mean, that's a win-win.
Yeah, and some of them, because a lot of these landlords haven't kept up with market rents, you can just trade out what they were getting for rent. They might get more from your note. We've had a few of those.
Replace their income.
Replace their income, exactly,
Yeah. So now they get to not have the responsibility of owning the property, not have the risk, and you're going to take over and do all the hard work, and they're still going to keep getting the same check they were getting anyway. And they get some money in their pocket.
And there's a lot of sellers willing to do that too. Like I sold a couple properties that way. I took $20,000 down for a property.
I would sell properties that way, 100%. It's a great way to sell a property. Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if you're in that boat, you're not just looking to go do a 1031 into something else. Yeah. If I'm just going to sell and pay taxes, the reason I'm selling is to raise capital. But if I don't need all of that money in my bank account, why would I not do that?
Yeah, like when I've done it before, it was exiting partnerships. We didn't actually need the capital, so we let someone leverage in, take over 3.25 debt we had on a fourplex, and just take notes. And then I did another house the same way because I was trying to get out of the partnership with Gabe.
Yeah, right.
I've thought about doing that on some of these like single family homes I have where they have a 3% in place or something like that.
Here's what you want to do.
Tell me.
Okay. So you want to lease option it to whoever wants to buy it, the tenant, right? You can arbitrage your debt. Now you can charge them a 5% rate, which is still better than current market rate.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can have your option fee increasing over time, so they're incentivized to execute. So like, let's say market increases by 4 to 6% per year, and you have your option fee increasing by 1 to 2% per year. Now you get to benefit from that. Plus, depending on how you structure it, you can benefit from your loan pay down still over time. Mm-hmm. So you could go do something like that on a deal. If you're like, hey, I don't want to deal with this deal anymore, you'll make more money just owning it yourself.
So you're arbitraging your underlying debt to make a spread. You're making interest on that loan.
Yeah. So now you can have, as long as they're,
which is a wrap, or you're calling it a lease option. You're doing
either way,
lease option.
Yeah, either way.
You throw something like that on the MLS, single family home, 3% debt. We'll give it to you at 5%. And
I would just say 5% debt. But
do agents? Like, do people grasp what's going on there?
Scared.
Do you get a buyer? That's always I feel like no one gets it.
Nobody. All this stuff we talk about scares people.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
So here's what happens: the agent doesn't understand it. Then they send it to the lender. Lender may kind of understand, be like, "Oh shit, I can't do the loan now." You don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, they want a loan fee.
I've seen that happen multiple times. Where like, you can't do that. Blah 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 blah, because they want to get paid their $3,000 on doing the loan.
Oh, now you hate loan officers too.
I hate
wholesalers, broker. Trevor hates everybody in real estate.
Everybody's in the crosshair. all he talks about is real estate, but he hates everyone in real estate.
You're right, though. It is a difficult conversation to have. Being creative, it has sort of this, I don't know, people who don't understand what you're talking about, they just think you're automatically a con artist.
Right. The multi-space, it's very common.
So it's more common.
People do it.
People are a little more sophisticated.
But you go get somebody that's bought 3 houses in their life and is just looking to owner occupy.
We've gone to sellers and we've said, hey, we'll pay you more and you will come out ahead if you do it like this. And like all you have to do, I've had deals where I've offered them full price with a $300,000 note, similar to what you did on the fourplex. Mm-hmm. They said no, and then 3 months later, I see they sold it and they dropped the price $300,000. And I call them up and I'm like, guys, like you could have sold me the same deal and had cash flow on a $300,000 note. Why did you lower the price $300,000? Oh, we just didn't want to mess with it. We'd had partners.
Yeah.
My partner just didn't want to think about it anymore.
They're just throwing money away.
They're just thinking in their mind like, oh, now we got to collect on this note. What happens if they don't pay? They're not. I mean, I don't know. Take the time to vet your borrower. If they looked at me borrowing $300,000, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, duh. It'd be better to loan Gabe $300,000 than to lower our price $300,000." I don't know. In their mind, they just want to sell it, be done with it, and not have to worry about it anymore.
Or the broker's not properly communicating.
Well, that's part of it. That's part of it.
Dude, that happens all the time where you have like a win. You know it can help this client like that they have, and they're just not giving them the information because they're not open to it. And you're like, you are just like shooting your client in the foot.
They
like,
shouldn't have a broker. Like the broker's
inhibiting the deal. Yes.
Yeah, what is the broker doing? That's what I want to know. It's like I'm filling out the paperwork, or a broker is supposed to be protecting their client. We have a fiduciary responsibility, but
they're breaking their fiduciary responsibility.
That's what I'm getting at. If their fiduciary responsibility is to watch out for their client, shouldn't they be sophisticated enough to explain to them what a good deal is versus what a bad deal is?
They don't know though,
and disclose everything to their client. Sometimes I feel like they're not even telling them that this thing is on
so
the table.
So that's a great point to make. And typically, what we do is sometimes even before we write the offer, we try to get access to the seller. So in many of our creative deals, we have a Zoom call or we sit in person and we meet with the seller prior to even bringing them the offer, so they know exactly what it is we're trying to accomplish. Yeah. I've had deals where the broker was not the one in the way. It was an attorney or an accountant or somebody who said, no, this isn't going to work. And I just said, hey, let's just go grab coffee. And we sit down and we go grab coffee. And they're like, next day we get a phone call. Yeah, we're doing the deal, and we fired our attorney, and we love this. Like it works perfect, So I mean, attorneys serve their purpose, but in certain cases, you just got to tell your attorney, like, I want to do this deal. Show me how to do this deal.
Yeah, I mean, the attorneys, they're risk averse by design.
Yeah, they don't want the exposure.
Their job is to make sure that nothing bad ever happens.
Yeah, their job is to think of all the bad things that can happen. Yeah. They're deal killers for that reason. I mean, that's the way their brains are wired, is to think of all the bad things that are going to happen. But then you get in trouble and you go to them and they take care of you, and then they wonder why you went and made mistakes without talk to them.
Yeah, they
because I wanted to do that.
I told you so.
They're right.
They are.
But if you went to them every time and asked permission to do a deal, you'd never do a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a bad deal too that you were going to share, right?
Oh yeah, this could have been an absolute disaster. It wasn't good, but it could have been way, way worse. So this was definitely lessons learned from this one. But I think it was 2022, and it was a 5-plex in Ocean Shores, Washington. I don't know, you guys familiar?
Where's that?
On the coast, southern Washington.
It's on the ocean shore.
Just above Astoria a little bit, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking
about. But I know nothing about this community. It's from the wholesaler. I didn't go out there and look at it. I didn't send my contractors to look at it. I kind of just took the wholesaler's word for it. And I was in this headspace at the time where I was like, I need to do bigger deals. More doors. Exactly. And I was also in the space where I was like, all the good deals are off market. So I need to buy a bigger deal, and it needs to be off market also. And so I got an accepted offer on this thing, 5-plex out there, sight unseen, basically just took the word of,
how much?
Of the wholesaler. It was, and that's the other, it was $350. So
how do you go wrong on
it was $70,000 a door. That's what I thought. I was like, hey, there's no way I lose here. And I like just learned how cap rates worked, and I was like, yep, this is how I raise the rents. It's gonna be worth double this in 2 years, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And this thing, it's out in this. I've actually never been to Ocean Shores, but there's not a ton going on. There's a lot of like meth and food stamps. And there's just not a whole ton happening there. So the 5 units were occupied by. I bought it with hard money. 5 units were occupied. I mean, there was mentally ill people in there. There was feces on the floor and one. It was all the maintenance stuff you could think of. But the rents were good. It paid.
They were paying their rents?
They did pay their rents because they were mostly on government.
Section 8,
yeah.
Section 8.
Yeah, Section 8 exactly. So anyway, I was in hard money, and I was going through the refi on it, and they went out there, and they're like, we're not
lending on this.
So all the underwriting got approved, but then they went to
so numbers wise it worked.
The numbers were great, and then they went to do the inspection.
There's poop all over the floor.
And there was like foundation issues, like all the stuff that appraisers, inspectors freak out about.
They caught foundation issues. Was it really messed up?
It was really bad.
Was
and then so I sent my contractors up there. I forgot they bid it at like it was almost, I think it was like 200 grand. So it's like over half the cost of what I paid for it to just fix this one issue, not to value add anything, just to make it so it's financeable. And so I was like, oh my God, what, and this was 2 years ago too. I didn't have as much portfolio. It was like, this could
wipe you out.
Did it pay for itself on hard money?
I think it was like it was right around break even.
Just perpetual hard money.
I guess I could have done that. Yeah, at the time that it even, because I was just like hard money equals
a point
bad.
every 6 months
equals bad. Get out of this. And so I couldn't get it. I couldn't do the repairs. I couldn't. And the other thing, it was a property manager I had never met, and they were doing not a great job either. And I was like, what am I can't do the renovation, or I can't do the repairs. I can't refinance it. I ended up thankful. I gave it back to the same wholesaler that I bought it from
go sell it again.
To sell it again, and they found the right person. It needed to be somebody that was like boots on the ground in that community, knows how to, that was going to be like a hands-on manager and go do this stuff. And they found somebody. I took a haircut on it for sure, but like it was in the scheme of what it could have been, it was like a disaster averted. So since then I don't buy anything without my contractors going to look at it.
Were there was no good units in there?
Gosh,
I needed the appraiser to see the right one.
I think that I didn't know anything about like how because it was my first multifamily appraiser or commercial appraiser.
Yeah.
And so it's a totally different, it's a little bit different how they.
Yeah. 5 units is tough because now you're in the commercial world, but it's very small commercial.
Yeah.
And so you're dealing with a less sophisticated lender usually. I mean, and they're going to send out, they're not going to have a team of engineers and people that look at properties. They're just going to send out more of a residential type.
Yeah, they sent one person who drove all the way over from Portland.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to get somebody that even knows that area. There's no appraisers in that area.
Yeah. So I got out of it, but it was that could have like.
How did you think you were going to raise rents on Section 8? Were you checking if those vouchers had a higher threshold you could move to, or were you going to try to re-tenant it with non-Section 8 tenants?
No, I was going to keep the tenants, and this was like 2 years ago. I think the plan was I had looked at what the Section 8 thresholds were there, and was just going to try to get it up to those numbers.
So you were going to request an increase, and that's something not a lot of people know is that your property may have been rented out at $600 or $700, but the threshold, if the threshold's $1,200, like all you have to do is request an increase, and then they'll come and they'll review it. It's not up to the tenant to decide what your rent is. You could actually raise from $700 to $1,200 in one swoop if you clean the property up a little bit and just say, hey, my property, I could rent this for more, and your threshold is higher than what I'm renting at. All you have to do is request it, and you can request yearly increases as well. So, I mean, a lot of people think you go Section 8, you don't get the rents, but we own properties that we do Section 8, we get higher rents sometimes there than we get at other properties that are just market rate rented.
Oh yeah, it's literally a matrix. If you contact them, they'll send you I mean, in the rents, to your point, Gabe, some of the, I think a 3-bedroom in parts of Salem right now is like $2,500. Like they're borderline above market rents on some of these.
Yeah, you're not taking a haircut. The risk you run is if you go all Section 8, there are times where funding drops or they do a moratorium where they won't increase the threshold for a number of years. And there have been a couple times, if you talk to owners over the course of the last, they've owned over the last 20, 30 years, they've had a few trying times where it was like, we may not make it because of the way that they've changed the rules. Man. You're depending on that government money, and they turn that faucet off. So you are a little bit exposed, is what I'm trying to get at. But I have one partner in particular that built his whole business model around Section 8, and that's all they do. And it's just your rent shows up every month. Somebody moves out, they torch your unit, you got $5,000 credit.
Did that.
Yep, that's great. I mean, I don't know why people say they don't want to rent to Section 8. They had to make it a law saying we had to rent to Section 8, and I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to rent to Section 8. unless you're just worried about the rents not going up, or maybe you have a feeling that you don't want those kind of tenants in your building, or so I guess that would be the only reason.
Did you just say they'll give you $5,000 to turn your unit?
Go ahead.
Yeah. If they torch your unit, you can have. When I say torch, not burn it down, but if they screw the unit up, you got a big turn. They'll give you up to $5,000 to cover damages for a Section 8 voucher holder. And a Section 8 voucher holder, by the way, if you end up evicting them on a for-cause eviction, they lose their voucher forever.
Yeah, and that's a big wait list, I hear.
And so Section 8 voucher holders follow the rules, and they have people that come out and inspect that unit a couple times a year. They have, kind of like a caseworker or whatever. They make sure that they're following housekeeping rules and that they're being a good tenant. Like, you have another layer of management there to help you. And those folks, for the most part, do a really good job because they don't want to lose that voucher. They don't want to risk that.
Why are we not filling our vacancies with Section 8 right now?
Well, we may be above the threshold. I don't know. Like Matt's talking about, the threshold's pretty high on some units, but if we have 1s and 2s, we may. I mean, I don't know. There's a waiting list years long for Section 8 in Salem.
Look into it for our vacancies we have on.
I would just imagine that maybe the rent level's a little too high. I'm not sure. That's actually a really good question.
Should we ask the PM?
Mm-hmm.
They'll know how to do it.
The rent thresholds are high. Like I doubt you'd be above that.
So how do we have so many units that are just sitting? Because right now nothing's renting. Of course, it's the holidays right now, but we have units that are sitting $1,100-$1,200. 1s and 2s that haven't rented for a few months.
Oh, I know why.
Why?
Well, because we bought in the worst area you possibly could.
It doesn't matter. Section 8 I mean,
we don't.
They stopped putting people on the list. The list was so long, they stopped putting names on it.
Yeah. Do we need to go contact? I'll email the PM and we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could probably fill
Thanks,
with
Matt.
Section 8. You could probably fill those for $1,400 or. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it's more than $1,100 or $1,200.
Well, most of those people I think they get their voucher and they go shopping and they try to pick the space.
They pick where they want to go.
They pick where they want to go.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
no one wants to live.
Maybe the threshold's so high they're going to newer properties and they don't want to be in. I don't know.
Yeah, it's too high.
It's too low for them. Yeah.
Here's a question on that. Will lenders give you the same credit on your rent roll if it's Section 8 and not market?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Appraisers, lenders.
I don't think they'll know.
Buyers.
It's just on a rent roll.
Yeah,
No, it shows.
It does.
You're at the top of your T12. It'll show income and subsidized rent and everything.
Oh, that's true.
At least on our owner reports, they do.
Yeah,
it breaks out. It breaks down what the tenant pays versus what Section 8 pays.
Okay.
But nobody counts that against you. It's not. There is some rule with in the commercial lending world where they don't want your property a lot of times to have more than 20% Section 8 in there, or I don't know, maybe there's certain loan programs you don't qualify for. But I own a property, 48 unit in McMinnville, and we have an agreement with the county, Yamhill County. 65% of our property we leave available to only voucher holders, and they give us a 65% discount on our property tax. It's perfect. And those vouchers are as high or higher than what market rents are. So we've got a killer rent roll there, and we get 2/3 of our tax bill wiped out. It's awesome.
Yeah. So, on that bad deal, how much did you end up losing?
I think I lost about $50,000 on it.
Okay. It's a little bit of a loss.
Which, especially at that, it'd be a loss for me now, but especially at that time, that was, it was brutal, but the big picture, it could have been
way worse.
Way worse, yeah.
Okay. And you learned some valuable lessons for that $50,000.
So what'd you learn?
That was tuition.
Yeah, that's what I always say. When you lose money on a deal, people are paying $50,000 a year to go to college. Like it's a mindset shift, but you can almost think of it as taking a course.
Yeah.
And hopefully you will make money on it, but if you lose, hopefully you learn something from it.
So what'd you learn? What were the main takeaways?
First one, I don't buy anything without my contractors going to look at it. And then 2, I don't just make buying decisions because of something I heard on a podcast that I'm supposed to be doing. Or so. It was very much like I need to buy the first off-market multi or 5+ unit that comes on my radar. I don't care where it is. I don't know anything about Ocean Shores. So it's, the contractor piece. And then I also just not buying. I don't want to say don't ever buy markets you don't know because that's a little silly. Like you can do research, but don't just haphazardly buy a market that you're not
Yeah, you should have looked on Google Street View a little bit first.
Yeah.
Well,
there would have been a bear living in one of the dumpsters. And
yeah, you have to build infrastructure around where you're going to own. And so that's the thought process is I have to have good property management. I've got to be able to get my contractors there. I have to have vendors that we trust. And so you build that infrastructure in a place like Salem. There's a reason why you keep buying in Salem is because, you value the infrastructure that you've built. And so you can go other places and do that. It just takes effort.
so like McMinnville that's still SMI, right? But
Yep.
you go, like say you've bought stuff at the coast. That's not SMI. So when you buy, you're not going to buy a single 10 unit there. It's like, I want to be able to build the infrastructure around this first building and keep buying here. I don't want a one-off over there.
Yeah, over time. I mean, so go back in time 4 or 5 years. Most of the stuff I owned was not managed by SMI. I have 12 different property management companies that manage for me. SMI has grown since I bought it, and we manage now from Vancouver all the way down into Roseburg. And so now the goal is to try to bring it into the SMI fold, and now SMI manages a lot more of my units. But I still own outside of the SMI footprint that whole rule of you'll make more money if you go out of town, right? Mm-hmm. And so we got lucky in some instances where we found really good property managers in some areas like Astoria, Seaside. We have a great manager. And because we have a great manager and we're having luck and we have more buildings up there, we're comfortable buying more buildings in that market because we feel like we can turn the keys over and we have a good plan. We have a good business model up in that area. But if you told me to let's go to Medford, I don't own anything that far south yet, and we don't manage that far south yet. So the first thing I would do was think, I'd go talk to my team and go, hey, can we take SMI to Medford? That'd be one question. Or if we can't, who are the good property managers that are in that area that I can interview? And I'd call some brokers and I'd call some people that own in the area and see what they think of the management down there. That's kind of where it starts. And then, of course, you got to have vendors, and you got to have, Medford's probably not a great example because it's a huge market. Like, it's big enough to where we'd be able to find infrastructure. It'd be an easy one to add. It's on the I-5 corridor. We just go a little further south. That'd be a lot easier for me to add than to go, somewhere on the southern Oregon coast or up into Washington or, other places where we just don't have our arms around it. We just haven't gotten that big.
But you're thinking when you do say, we'll use the example of Medford, you're thinking big picture. Like, I have a business plan down here you don't maybe start off by buying a one-off there, but that's not your end game.
Yeah. So number one, I would not buy a duplex there.
Yeah.
And number two, I wouldn't buy a 100-unit complex there. I wouldn't go too small and I wouldn't go too big. I'd pick something big enough to where I was on the radar of a property management company and that I was a big enough player. So we might go 25 to 50 doors or something like that and go start like that and see how it goes. And if that goes well, I might pick up another one. And then if somebody brought me a fourplex in Medford, I'd probably buy it. Maybe. I mean, it depends on the partnership.
It's just rinse repeat at that
Yeah,
point.
It's just like now we're just adding doors to that zone. So once you have it going, I mean, my thought process is just own everything around it. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to go, I don't need to go reinvent the wheel every time and go to a new town every time. Just go to the towns you like. And once I have success, and the other thing that we found is that when we went to a place like Astoria or Seaside or even Roseburg, is we went to markets we didn't really know and we went to try them out and we knocked it out of the park in ways that we didn't knock it out of the park at home. Mm-hmm. And then we were like, oh, well, we should go do deals in those markets. And so you end up owning buildings in other areas just because you tried something and it worked. And then there's other places where we've gone, I own deals in Portland and it's, it's fine, but it's not like I'm not excited. Right now I'm excited about Portland because I think it's about ready to make a comeback. But over the last few years, I haven't been like, hey, everything I buy, I want it to be in Portland, because those deals are just not as exciting as the deals that I've done in other markets. So I think you have to just kind of test the waters. Mm-hmm. And you can look at numbers and you can talk to people and you can kind of get an opinion of what happens in some markets, but you don't really know those markets till you own real estate there. Once you own it, then you go visit there every once in a while. You pay attention. When you drive into a town that you're buying a building in, you look at different things than you would look at even in your own town.
Yeah.
You drive and you're like, wow, the McDonald's is at the exit. And oh, look at there's a car dealership and they've got, a little strip mall over here. You just start looking at things that you wouldn't look at otherwise. Mm-hmm. You start paying attention to where people go, where do they eat, where do they work, what happens. I don't know. You just study it. I don't study Salem like that. I don't stop and think about what everybody's doing in Salem. We just live here. Cool. All right. So you lost 50 grand. You got your tuition, and you learned you never do a deal without sending your contractor there.
That's right.
That's the lesson.
That's
the $50,000 lesson.
That's the $50,000 lesson.
How'd you find a contractor that you trust?
That's a funny story, actually. That back to that first Burr deal I bought out in Salem, Staten. My dad and I did a decent amount of the work, but there was some of it that required a contractor, and we got referenced over to this group. I can't even remember what they were called. Obviously I wouldn't throw them under the bus on the podcast anyway, but they went out there and they did the initial work and did a terrible job, like left a mess. The drywall was screwed, just very half-assed, like get in, get out, get a check kind of thing. And then the GC we were using, I contacted him. I was like, dude, this is whack. You need to do something about this. And to his credit, he was cool about it. He's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. It's one of the risks. When you sub it out, he's not really, he can't speak to the quality of their work. So he sent out these other guys to go fix it. And they came out, great dudes, they fixed everything, left the place immaculate, did a great job. I forgot about this. While they were there, the first floor ceiling fell in from water damage, and they fixed it on the spot. They gave me a pretty good. They knew it was like one of my first deals. They were like, I could tell they were like trying, because they were pretty new at the time. Also, I could tell they were trying to build a book of business and build a relationship. And they fixed it. They gave me a bargain on it. They're just great guys, and that's how I met them, because the first group did such a bad job. They came out and they've done all my stuff. Every flip I do, they do some stuff at my rentals too. But I've worked with them nonstop for almost 5 years now.
So they made the right move in building that relationship.
They did. I give and I trust. I mean that's the being in New York, like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't have. I can see pictures of these house flips and stuff, but I don't have hands-on quality control on this stuff. I can send people out there, but like I need to be able to trust these guys, and they're not cheap, but they show up. That's the other thing. They show up when they say they're going to do it. They come in at budget. They do it on time. That's how I met them.
I won't have you shout them out because everybody will steal them.
Everybody will take people. Hey, people have tried to take them. And one thing I'll tell people though is with your contractors, if you want to get good contractors that want to work with you, just pay them on time. That's the biggest feedback I get from these guys is like, I went and did a job for so and so, and I can't collect the money.
Yeah,
it's terrible. They hate it, and so they keep coming back to me. Hopefully, they don't bail on me.
Well, if you can flip a house and make money and use contractors, and you can be in New York and have, they must be reasonably priced enough to be able to pull that off, or you just have your deal's good enough. You've got it baked in.
Yeah, you got to buy them pretty deep. But yeah, they're not ridiculous, but they make about as much as I do on the flip sometimes.
That's a win-win.
Yeah, I'm not mad about that. They should get paid.
They should be finding some deals for you.
Yeah, I know. We always talk about partnering on deals together, but yeah, I'm like, you guys you're doing well enough just doing the work. Do you really need to own the deal?
Yeah,
take on more risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not worth it. Great. Anything else, Trev?
No, if you want to be like Matt, just go double your portfolio real quick.
Yeah, we love Matt's story. Awesome. I love the fact that you only lost money on one deal. I don't know.
You're a way better house flipper than Gabe.
Yeah, you got to do more deals. Well, you lost money on a 5-unit. Oh no, was it the 5-unit?
5-unit, yeah.
He lost money on a 5-unit. You never lost money flipping a house?
I technically have not lost money. I've had a few though, like the one I told you about.
He's way better than I
Where
am.
I-
You have 2.1 mil to lose still until
That's a lot of tuition.
I can't afford that
Gabe has a
tuition.
master's.
I couldn't either.
He has like 7 master's degrees.
PhD.
He was in college till he was 36.
All right, guys. Matt, thanks a lot for joining us again on Deal Junkies. We hope you like listening to this episode. Please share us. Is there anything else you got to say, Trevor? Shout
If you
out.
want to connect with Matt, tell him where they can.
How do we connect with Matt if you want to connect with Matt?
Yeah, DM me on Instagram, the real Matt Cox 4. My business Instagram is at Saucetown Properties, and please subscribe to my blog. It is free. It is mattcox444.substack.com.
Great. Thanks again for joining us, Matt.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, guys. And I genuinely do listen to every one of these episodes. You guys are doing cool stuff
Hey,
here.
who do you
should
like
listen.
most between the hosts?
Oh, man. Depend. I guess Trevor brought me a deal most recently, so I'll go with Trevor.
Trevor's a fan favorite. Most people like Trevor the best.
Who's your least favorite?
the two guys who skipped out on my only podcast appearance.
Mike and Dave.
Mike
We'll
and
come
Dave.
back and talk about the 30 unit.
We'll do it. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we'll do a follow-up next year. Let's do it while you're doing your 30 unit.
I'd love to. No, this is a
We'll do a
blast.
progress update.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks again, Matt. And thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time.